You've just gotten home from a morning of running errands when you begin to feel a little off. Feeling weak and queasy, you sit down and wait for whatever it is to pass. But the more you brush off your symptoms, the worse they get. Suddenly, you realize you can't hold it off any longer and rush to the bathroom. After you've finished evacuating the contents of your stomach, you're left with a strange bitter taste in your mouth and a stabbing pain in your stomach. You pull out your phone and with blurred vision struggle to text your family about how you're feeling. They assure you it's probably just one of your stomach ulcer flare-ups and that you'll be fine. But there's something eating away at the back of your mind, telling you this isn't just a stomach ulcer. Then, you remember how you were out on your errands, minding your own business. Just before you started feeling poorly, a stranger told you that you only had days to live.
Would you hurry up and pick something? I've already eaten all my popcorn.
I told you should wait until we started watching. Here, we can share mine.
Thanks, but I ate yours too. Besides, I just remembered I have these.
Where'd you get those?
I found them.
What do you mean you found them?
Well, you know that candy store downtown?
You mean the one that was forced to close because of all the crime in that area?
Yeah, that's the one. Well, in front of the candy store, sitting in the middle of the sidewalk, wouldn't you believe it? A completely unopened bag of candy. Good find, huh?
I'm not too sure about that.
What do you mean? It's just candy. And it's not even opened. What's the worst that could happen?
Well, on August 3rd, 2023, 27-year-old Fernanda Silva was walking in the tourist-filled city center of Maceió, Brazil, when she was approached by one of the many fortune tellers lining the street, eagerly asking to give her a palm reading. Fernanda agreed to the older woman's request, but as she did so, she had no idea that she was setting into motion a series of events that could not be undone. After examining her palm, the woman looked up at Fernanda and told her a heart-stopping prediction. She only had a few days left to live. The fortune teller then placed a piece of chocolate in Fernanda's open hand and sent her on her way. The ordeal was eerie, if not incredibly unsettling. But Fernanda had errands to run, so she brushed it off and went on her way. As she left, Fernanda realized how hungry she was and figured that she might as well eat the chocolate. And after stopping to pay a bill, she went back home. But a few hours later, that's when everything started going downhill. First, her entire body became weak and her vision blurred, but symptoms quickly escalated to severe stomach pains and vomiting. She was texting her family about how she was feeling, and they figured that she was just having a flare-up of her pre-existing gastritis and ulcers. But Fernanda's symptoms didn't stop there. My heart is racing, I've thrown up, but I have this taste in my mouth. So bitter, bad. My vision is blurry. I'm so weak, she texted her family. But still, her family didn't think anything suspicious had taken place until Fernanda told them about her encounter with the fortune teller that morning. I accepted a chocolate in the city center. I ate it. After that, I felt sick, she told them. At the time, it didn't even cross my mind. She was an old lady. Fernanda added that she was cautious at first, but decided to eat the chocolate after examining it and confirming that it was well sealed. But if anyone in her family was still holding on to the theory that her symptoms were due to previously existing stomach conditions, they were certainly proven wrong when she was bleeding from her nose and foaming at the mouth. With that, a cousin rushed her to the Santa Casa de Misericordia hospital. Once there, doctors reportedly did all they could, but sadly, Fernanda died in the early hours of the following morning, on August 4th. Officials listed Fernanda's death as a death to be clarified, and they were waiting on forensic results so that they could confirm homicide speculations.
Homicide speculations? They think the old lady murdered her?
Yeah, I mean, do you blame them? After all, if the fortune teller didn't kill her, then they are forced to accept one of two things. Either this is all just an incredible coincidence, or the old woman chose Fernanda from the crowd because she saw some kind of terrible impending doom aura or something.
I don't know, but fortune telling isn't real. Right, bro?
The short answer? No. Simply put, the practice of fortune telling does not hold up against scientific scrutiny, which is my favorite kind of scrutiny. But let's entertain it for the sake of the story. What if this old lady was actually able to predict Fernanda's future? And how often do fortune tellers even make these kind of predictions?
Yeah, wouldn't they want to keep their clients happy and, not traumatize them with extremely disturbing predictions like you're gonna die soon?
Well, apparently the opposite may be true. According to Mary Tretanero, a psychic medium working out of Boston, Some psychics may try to instill fear in you purposely as a sales pitch, so you'll come back again and again to learn how to avoid such a catastrophe. She said this is a way that clients give up their power to a psychic. It turns out that fortune-telling is actually pretty closely monitored, regulated, and even outright illegal throughout parts of the world. In the US, it's seen to on a state-by-state basis, and often requires licenses and permits to operate as a fortune-teller in order to prevent fraud from occurring. Take Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, for example, where getting paid to predict someone's death has been against the law for over 60 years. But even with death predictions being taboo, if not outright illegal, there have been a number of cases throughout history of deaths being seemingly predicted by self-proclaimed fortune tellers. But even in these cases, they do a pretty good job at disproving their own abilities. Take John F. Kennedy, for example, whose assassination was foretold 7 years before it happened by a fortune teller named Jeane Dixon. She predicted that the 1960 American presidential election would be dominated by Labor and won by a Democrat, who would later be assassinated or die in office, though not necessarily in his first term, in an article published in Parade magazine on May 13, 1956.
Wait, JFK? Ain't that the president who was assassinated? So she predicted it correctly. That's a weird way to disprove herself.
Huh, my bad. I guess she was right. Want to hear some other predictions she made?
You know I love it when you're wrong, Hermit. List them.
Well, of course we remembered Richard Nixon making a post-Watergate political comeback in 1976, Russia being the first country to put a man on the moon, and who could forget the year 1958, when World War III began?
Yeah, I don't remember any of that happening.
You shouldn't, because they didn't. And yet, these were all predictions made by the very same medium, and she made many, many, many more false fortunes.
So what gives? If she was wrong so many times, then why did people still believe her?
It's interesting, isn't it? Jeane Dixon's psychic batting average was about as good as my Little League batting average. Not great. Yet, people still believed in her abilities, which seems to be a bit of a phenomenon regarding the public perception of fortune-telling. In fact, mathematician John Allen Paulos coined a name for it, the Jeane Dixon effect. He describes it as the tendency we all have to read more significance into coincidences than is usually justified. We forget all the premonitions of disaster we've had which didn't predict the future and remember vividly those few which seem to do so. In isolation, the JFK prediction appears correct, but when stacked side by side with the incorrect predictions, it seems like little more than a lucky guess.
Lucky guess? Jeane said JFK would get assassinated, and she was right.
Was she though? Let's break down her prediction. She predicted that a Democrat-elected president would be assassinated or die in office, though not necessarily in his first term. She never mentions Kennedy by name, nor does she commit to his death being an assassination. The line, "or die in office," could mean anything from a cerebral hemorrhage like President Roosevelt, to a heart attack like President Harding, to an assassination like President Lincoln.
Wait, hold up. Just how many presidents do die in office?
The better question to ask is, how many presidents die in office after being elected during years divisible by 20?
Seriously, bro? You think I'm gonna ask that specifically?
Well, since 1840, 8 presidents have died in office, and 7 of them shared electoral years divisible by 20, like Roosevelt 1940, Harding 1920, and Lincoln 1860. As eerie coincidences often do, it took on a new life as an urban legend, the 20-year curse. Among those 7 deaths would be John F. Kennedy in 1960. In fact, his was the last one, breaking the streak started by William Henry Harrison in 1840. The curse was notorious enough to be acknowledged by the trivia book series, Ripley's Believe It or Not, as early as 1931. Now, I'm only looking to tango with one supernatural element at a time, so let's save the science for curses for another video and bring our focus back to Jeane's prediction with this cursed context. She claimed that an unnamed president elected in 1960 would perish in office. By the time she made this prediction, 6 presidents had consecutively met the same fate. She does not claim how he will die, whether or not it will be murder or natural causes, or even what term it will occur in.
Hey, credit where it's due. She did predict he was gonna be a Democrat.
You're right. She correctly predicted that Kennedy would represent one of the 2 parties in a 2-party system. Howard, could you crunch the numbers on that level of probability?
Really? 50%.
You see? So her prediction of JFK's assassination was a pretty broad telling of something that wasn't all that unlikely to happen in the first place.
Right, if she had said something like A Kennedy would be in office and assassinated with a shot in the head on this exact day. Now that would be spooky.
It would, indeed. But then there was Irish poet and playwright Oscar Wilde, whose encounter with a fortune teller that predicted his early demise at the age of 44 had such a profound impact on him, it deeply embedded the notion of predestined fate into his worldview. In a 1908 Italian interview that has only recently been translated into English for the first time, Oscar openly shared his acceptance of this fate, saying, "All my destiny is inscribed here, in the palm of my hand. I have an absolutely psychic hand, the fortune teller told me, and we must believe in fortune telling. It is the most exact and the most useful of all sciences. We should not deceive ourselves. Every man is predestined to carry out a certain existence. We are nothing more than simple puppets in a grotesque rat trap."
This human understands the morbid experience I face daily as a mere puppet whose only purpose is to enable a caffeine addict.
Yeah. Pretty wild, isn't it?
But he even called it a science. Is it though?
It's really not. But he sure believed it. He even accomplished his goal of completing all of the plays, novels, and short stories he wished to write before he was 44, the age he believed he was destined to die. And when he finished it all ahead of schedule at the age of 41, he said, "Now there is nothing left for me to do but wait for death, which will come to visit me in 3 years, since I must die at the age of 44. Even though he actually passed away at 46, of meningitis.
The fortune teller wasn't even right. They got the age wrong.
It would seem so, but that didn't stop Oscar's strong belief in the fortune teller's prediction. He truly trusted in destiny and supernatural forces, even after he didn't pass away at 44.
45 must have been a weird year for him.
But psychics haven't only potentially revealed the impending deaths of famous people throughout history. At 28, Susan Palmer visited a psychic out of curiosity. Despite her skepticism, the psychic made a startling prediction. Susan, who never planned on having children, would have a son and her husband would die when the son turned 13, but that everything will be fine. Susan recalled thinking the prediction was the oddest thing in the world, and it gave her the creeps. Years later, at 40, Susan was struck with a severe illness that caused her to rethink her life, and she decided to have a child. As her son Matthew grew, she and her husband joked about the psychic's ominous prediction, using it in light-hearted warnings.
Oh, the psychic predicted she would have a son.
Do I need to get Howard involved again to explain the probability there?
No.
But the laughter ceased when, just 2 weeks after Matthew's 13th birthday, her husband unexpectedly died of a cardiac arrest.
He died right when she predicted he would. Okay, my arms are standing up. Look at them, bro! Look at them!
No thanks. In a documentary made by their son Matthew, Susan shared that she still doesn't believe in psychics, but admitted that the psychic's reassurance provided some comfort after her husband's death.
What? Let me get this straight. Correctly predicts that she was gonna have a kid even though she never wanted one, was right about it being a boy, and then the father dies literally after the kid's 13th birthday. And still, she doesn't believe in psychics. How? I mean, not that I would believe in them or anything, but of all people, she should.
She stuck to her own beliefs, just as Oscar did when he chose to believe in the supernatural, even after he didn't die when he was told he would, just like we all choose whether or not to buy into psychic predictions. So, in the end, I'll let you be the holder of your own beliefs. But in the case of Fernanda in Brazil, it seems there was more at play than just suspicions of the supernatural. If we were to believe the legitimacy of the palm reader who predicted Fernanda was going to die within a matter of days, we would also then have to rule her autopsy results as a coincidence. Because a few months after her sudden passing, the results of her post-mortem revealed a shocking truth. Fernanda had high levels of the pesticides sulfotep and terbufos present in her eyes, blood, stomach, and urine. Well, Bean, sulfotep and terbufos are highly toxic organophosphate insecticides. Organophosphate is a group of chemicals used to kill insects by blocking a key enzyme they need for nerve function. This causes the insects to become overstimulated and eventually die. Even though they're both particularly strong pesticides that can be dangerous not just to pests but also to other animals and people too, they have different purposes. Sulfotep is mainly used as a fumigant in greenhouses to control pests like aphids, and is characterized by its oil-like consistency and garlicky smell. Terbufos, on the other hand, is applied directly to the soil to fight pests like rootworms on crops such as corn and potatoes. It's considered extremely hazardous by health organizations and is even banned in the European Union due to its high toxicity and serious health risks. Due to their potent effects, both of them have strict rules on how and when they can be used. So how could they have gotten into Fernanda's body? Could it have been accidental? Did she consume food that had been contaminated with pesticides during its growth without washing them properly, leaving significant residue on it? Well, it's important to note that Brazil is one of the top users of chemical pesticides globally, ranking just behind the United States. This high usage is linked to its large agricultural output, as the country relies on these chemicals for crop management and increased productivity. However, this extensive use also raises concerns about environmental and health impacts. And in 2016 alone, there were 4,208 reported cases of poisonings just by exposure alone, killing 355 people. Only in Fernanda's case, the two pesticides found within her are not known to ever be used in conjunction with one another, ruling out the possibility that this was an accidental poisoning. They are, however, related to a number of crimes in the country. Talmany Goulart, the head of the chemistry and toxicology laboratory that examined Fernanda's samples, noted that these substances are highly prevalent in cases of poisoning and intoxication in Brazil due to their easy access, despite being regulated by the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Supply. And remember the chocolate given to her by a certain palm reader who had also just happened to give her a warning of impending death? It's likely that this candy could have been used to deliver the poison. But this revelation left Fernanda's family stunned. Her cousin, Luminita Valas, said, "I don't see anyone having a reason to do this to her, but we don't know anyone's heart. If it was someone who ordered the killing, or if the fortune teller killed her because she wanted to, only the police will find out." If Fernanda had received a whole box of chocolates, any remaining pieces could have allowed investigators to have a chance to identify the chocolates as the cause of death. However, there was nothing for investigators to analyze and compare to the toxins found in Fernanda's body. But her family filed a police report, and the Civil Police's homicide group began looking into whether or not the fortune teller was hired to assassinate Fernanda. They assigned a team to search the streets, retracing Fernanda's steps. They also set up a hotline for the public to help if they had any information regarding the case. But it seems that after giving Fernanda the chocolate, the woman had simply vanished into thin air and has yet to be found, which really increases suspicions of her guilt. It remains unclear whether she acted alone, was hired to harm Fernanda, or if she was even involved at all. We cannot yet apprehend the aforementioned fortune teller, as there isn't enough evidence to prove she is the perpetrator, said an official with the case. The crime scene did not have any CCTV cameras, making this a challenging case, as we have to investigate a murder from a place with no physical witnesses at the point of occurrence. However, we will strive to deliver justice and gather the necessary information for this case. We may never know exactly why someone wanted to take Fernanda's life, but one thing's for sure: even as adults, let's err on the side of caution and avoid taking candy from strangers. Or the streets, for that matter.
All right, I'll throw the candy away. Sheesh. By the way, nice hat, Houdini.
1. Houdini was a magician, not a fortune teller. And 2. No, but I am getting a message from the great beyond for the folks at home. I am seeing something in your future. It seems you have subscribed to our channel and hit the bell. Now you're never missing another video. You're armed with knowledge and informed on how to avoid many ill fortunes, such as being one of the unfortunate people who suddenly died after eating at a sushi restaurant. And no, this wasn't a case of bad seafood. It was something far more mysterious. So, until next time, thanks for watching Brew, Unraveling the Unsettling, one cup at a time.